Material for the brain. Conversations for thinking bodies. Hello to all of you out there, and welcome for another episode of Material for the Brain podcast. Today's guest is a friend of mine from Israel, Yochai Ginton, a dancer, teacher, and a performer. Yochai was a very inspiring person for me in my own journey of becoming a dancer, as he did a similar process several years ahead of me, and in his humble way, showed me that it is possible to become a dancer in a later phase of one's life. Many years later, Yochai is still very passionate about dance and the potential it has on the way we can experience life. Yochai is also a great example of someone who found a way to use dance as a tool for self-growth and self-inquiry. And on a personal note, Yochai reminds me that there are many different ways to reach the same point, a reminder that I tend to forget too easily. Our conversation was recorded on the 20th of April, and since then the reality in Israel had changed dramatically due to the latest escalation in the ongoing conflict in the region. If we would have recorded the conversation yesterday, it would have probably become a very different one. But nevertheless, I do feel that Yochai's voice is ever more needed, and I'm happy that I can share it with you all. Now, before we start, I have just one request or an invitation for you. If there is someone you think that could be an interesting guest for the podcast and that you would be curious to hear how a conversation with me could unfold, please reach out to me via email or on social media and share with me your ideas. I would be very happy to hear from you. And now, without further ado, here is Yochai Ginton. Good morning, Yochai. How are you, my friend?
Good morning, Matan. I'm good.
It's really nice to... I'm very good. It's really nice to see you. It's been a long time since we took some time to converse, and I'm really excited to see you.
Yes, a long time. I'm excited as well. Very much.
There is many things I want to talk to you because we shared a lot of history. But maybe you can kind of bring me a little bit into your life. Like, where are you now? What is going on? What is new? How is life at the moment?
Hey, where am I now? Now I'm in Kibbutz Bet Nir, sitting in my new home, which we recently moved with the family, with Olivia and her daughter, 12 years old, and our mutual daughter, Sol, almost 3. So we moved 2 months ago to Bet Nir. Kibbutz Bet Nir is where I grew up as a child for 20 years. And it's very special for me, the sensation of feeling like a very strong anchor, a root after 3-4 years. So I think that's my main excitement nowadays, this feeling of, wow, the ship has arrived, to the shore, to the island. And it's really a very strong physical sensation that something is expanding, and there is more availability because of having a clearer anchor. So if you ask me where I am, that's my main focus, because it was a very, very intense move that we did here. And now we're starting to take our heads above the water and enjoy more, take more time, and slowly discover the ways to interlink the dance and the professional life into where we live now, which is not obvious. It requires a lot of creativity.
Yeah, and I guess when I hear this, just these words that you're back in the kibbutz where you grew up, I think that maybe for many of the audience who are listening, it's just sounds like okay, he come back to where he grew up, but I think that since I know what a kibbutz is and what kind of a childhood you probably had, I can assume how special it is. No, like tons of childhood memories and a lot of emotional connection to the place. No.
Yes, very much emotionally connected to the place, and it's nice to discover it from a new angle after, I don't know, almost 20 years that I haven't been here. So it's a very big shift. I mean, also for my partner, I'm more familiar with living in the nature and in the countryside, and for her and for her daughter, it's less obvious. So there is a lot of adaptation to do, to understand what it means to live not only in the countryside but also in this form of a kibbutz, this kind of community, which it has also changed a lot. But the aspect of privacy is not obvious. It's not moving to the countryside, to some house in the forest, that you have your spot, your corner, and you're somewhat isolated. You see your neighbors. I know everybody. Hi, and for me it's fine. I like it. I don't know. I like the people in all ages, and I like the open grass. There is like an open grass and like the sensation of space when my child soul just runs out and she can run to the grass, and this sensation of space is very strong. Yet there is this aspect of everybody knows one another. It's a small village. It's like 500 people living here. And the concept of borders or privacy, I think it has another color here. It's not that everybody immediately comes and they build their own like a live fence, and it's very clear that you have your private space. It maybe gives also a sensation of feeling protected or feeling like intimate. Here is more like open.
Is it more coming because of the history of the kibbutz movement, that it was like a socialist village, and this history is kind of still present in that regard, you think? Or
yes, it's still the resonance, the outcome of this history that in the kibbutz you grow up as the child of the kibbutz. You're not so much the child of your mother and father. You're more the child of the kibbutz. So the kibbutz needs to know where you are all the time, and there. It's like the kibbutz is, in the old times, is like one big family. So if you put a border on your private land, it's like you disconnect yourself, or where your house is, you kind of disconnect yourself from the family, and the kibbutz is the family. So the kibbutz wants to know what's happening there inside. So all this concept of privacy is has a big twist. It didn't bother me as a child. Like I wasn't like envy jealous, envy for my privacy. But actually now, coming back and also through the eyes of my partner, realizing the meaningfulness and the importance of having like your own private zone and your intimate zone that is not obvious, that everybody sees and that you share it with everybody. And yeah, the kibbutz is like changing a lot in terms of the ownership of the lands and where people work, how they receive their money, and everything becomes more private, more like a community village. And there is more respect, much more respect towards the privacy of the individual. Not only that, giving the space and the how you say, the greetings for the person that, yeah, go and live your dream and see where you want to take your life, and you don't only have to work in the fields of the kibbutz, in the frames of the kibbutz. So this has changed intensely, or like in a very big manner, in the last 30 years, I would say. And now I still feel, especially in the people, in the older people, you still feel in their personality and in the vibe, the old kibbutz, and that it's not obvious for the neighbors to accept that. Wow, we would like our privacy. It's not obvious to all the time this to say hi to everybody. But I'm observing that, and there's like an adjustment from our side to this, to living here, but I think also very much from the kibbutz side, to a lot of young couples that are coming back to live here and start a life here with a young family, as a young family. And we'll see where it takes us and where it takes this place.
It's I wasn't aware of that shift that you did, and somehow, it pulls my curiosity into a bit different direction of what I planned when I invited you here. But nevertheless, I'm pretty excited about it because, I hear you, and I already sense in myself all the kind of reaction that I have to this story, and the different positive and negative aspect that are coming from this kind of lifestyle, and like, who am I in this relation? And I grew up in the city, even though my father is a farmer, and he moved from his piece of land to Jerusalem because my mother didn't want to live in the countryside. But at the same time, I grew up with a father that had kind of a certain despise to the kibbutz movement. So I heard a lot of critique about the kibbutzes and like this kind of overly shared life. And I think I grew up to become a person who has a very strong ability to place boundaries between me and other people. And my wife is the opposite, and she's very attracted to this kind. She always wants to go back to Israel and live in some kibbutz. And I'm like, you can do it, but with another man. So and then when I hear you, it's like, it's just interesting how it can take you to different places. Because now I feel like it would be maybe for me as a on a level of like a emotional work, a very good thing to do. To face this kind of need to always push people away from myself, and it's not obvious like what are the thing that can come up with such decision. I don't know what was motivating you to move from the city, especially like that you're both dancers working around culture, and like, was it related to the corona and all this that kind of stopped our profession for a while, or?
The first thing that sparked this need to move out of the city was the birth of Sol, my little one, that it hit me like a lightning that I cannot grow her in Jaffa. It's way too aggressive. You know, when you go with the strolley with the few months baby, everything around you is how you say, magnified, like with a magnifying glass. The little pieces of the cigarettes, the broken glass everywhere, and you're like, if you take her out of the strolley, it's like everything looks so huge. Every motorcycle that comes, the noises, the sounds, like that can be very sharp, and you look on your tender little baby, and she, shivers, and this need to, I don't know, this need to protect her. That's the first thing that comes to me. But also the question, where can I be the best father? I love the city, and I love there is a very colorful and inspiring energy there. And for me, it was very inspiring as a single man there, or with a girlfriend. But as a father, raising a family, I felt I cannot be at my best. And it I want to be the best father that I can be. So my main question was, like, the main thing that came to me was anchor, root, anchor. I need an anchor. I don't feel anchored here. In the first year of Sol, we still lived in the city. So I couldn't find an anchor within myself in the relationship to the fatherhood, to the partnerhood, to where we lived. It was very challenging. So what I could do until we eventually moved was to investigate, what does it mean in dance, as a teacher, as a dance teacher, as a mover, to teach anchors, searching for anchors. How can I find it in the realm of physicality? And I think this need for a root, for an anchor, actually made me improve my abilities as a dancer, as a performer, looking for anchors, and the anchor of the movement, like the importance of where the movement comes from, and what is the trajectory, where do I send it? So it's the same, what is my anchor as a father, and the trajectory in my baby, in the child, how it's growing up, or how is the communication with her. So I started teaching anchors, that's how I can call it. Like, because of looking for anchors, I was teaching anchors in movement. It's not anchor to park the ship or the boat, but is anchor in order to find movement eventually. Because I felt a lack of movement within me. Something was stuck. And again, it was a very challenging and intense move after 1 year to move to the village. Like, I was really insisting on it and looking for the way to understand how we can do it together, like how we can do this step that was, for my partner, for Olivia, was really not obvious, because for her, in many ways, the anchor is the city, is the beach, is the theater, and taking a bicycle to meet friends or going to a coffee place. So, we needed to balance these differences, and I think we came a very long way in our togetherness in order to find a way to make a bridge between our differences in order to grow as a family in our partnership, in partnerhood, in our parenthood. Yeah, so we moved to another village. It was a preparation for the kibbutz. It wasn't obvious to immediately jump into the kibbutz, like, whoa, wait, the kibbutz is too extreme. Let's take a step before. So for a year and a half, we lived in a village, community village called Srigim, which is very close to Netiv Lamed Hey, where the Vertigo dance company is based. And that was a very nice connection. I started teaching there as well. And yeah, it was a very important transition to see if it's manageable for us as a family to live in the village. And eventually, the shift to the kibbutz is a real estate choice, because it is so difficult in Israel. Like, how many more years can one pay rent, high rent, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 shekel a month just for rent? How many more years as a father, as a mother, as a dancer, as an artist? And this wish to find a place. Now we are living in the property of my mom. My mom lives in Ramat Gan, and she doesn't have, for now, a plan to come back. Already 14 years she's out of the kibbutz, and she was really happy with it after 50 years of living in kibbutz. So it worked out well, because we could enter her property. And now it was the last stage of the bureaucracy of the ownership of the land. So now my mom is the owner of the land, and we would make an agreement with my mom about living here on this piece of land, and it's ours. In other words, it's ours. It's my family's property. It's not anymore this, like, maybe next year the rent will go higher, or the owner will decide to come back, or to renovate, and we will need to move. And it takes so much mental energy, and I really, really needed this anchor, this wood, for the sake of my family, for our well-being, and again, especially to feel, where can I support my family in the best way, as a father, as a partner. And it's very exciting to feel how the energy is bubbling up, and I feel more and more capability and availability, because of, we're already 2-3 months here. Wow, we are here. We have landed in the promised land. It's really funny, but this was my image, like, להגיע לארץ המובטחת, to arrive to the promised land. So, well, everything is temporarily, and later on in life, maybe we will move again, but there is, in the mental aspect, in the state of being now, a sensation, we are here. This is the place. This is what I feel, especially. And now I can focus on making a trunk and branches towards the dance and the performance, and of course, before that, the education of my partner's daughter, Kala, that she's entering now junior high school, and the education of my little girl, and also for the coming baby. I don't know if you know that Olivia, she's pregnant, and
congratulations.
Thank you very much. And in a month and a half is the due date for the birth.
That's the most exciting news that I ever had on my podcast.
I'm happy. Yeah, it's very exciting, and we are fully in it, and there's a lot of focus there. Simultaneously, sending, also some attention and focus on finding creative ways to live in such a community, in such a village, and how can we evolve in our profession as dancers and artists and performers. Is really not obvious. It requires a lot of creativity, patience, durability, and persistent, נחישות.
Persistence.
Persistency. Yeah.
Wow, one thing you said that really touched me is that you said I wanted to move because I wanted to enable myself to be the best father I can. And, when I kind of reflect back on what was my attitude when my first daughter was born, I was so much far away from that. I was really still very obsessive about myself and about developing my career, and and there's also some kind of a kid next to me. And it took me many years to kind of drop into this role of, wow, that's my responsibility now. Life should circle around that and not vice versa. And so first, it's really inspiring to see the maturity in your decision making. It's really beautiful. And there's many things I can already keep asking you, but I still want to go back a little bit to the past and to give also the audience some kind of a deeper look into who you are or where you're coming from, and also maybe to share with you a little bit some memories that I have that in the way that our life kind of circled together and how you affected me. Because, to some extent, we have quite similar stories when it comes to the anecdotal decisions. I think we were both involved in sport as young kids, then grew up, and then at a certain point, we started to play around with dance, mainly with contact improvisation. And then there was a call to make it into something that is more professional. And you went and studied dance, and I went after, and I still remember that I was calling you to kind of get your advice about the school you were studying. And what do you think? Should I also go there? And you were kind of encouraging me, don't be afraid of it. You can make it, because I had a lot of hesitation. Would I really be able to transition from this kind of amateur contact dancer who enjoyed the attention of being on stage to really become a professional dancer? And so you played this important role in my life with this kind of almost like a big brother who is doing the steps a little bit before me, and I can have trust that, okay, it's doable to do it. I can drop all my life that were very stable and go and pursue this dream. But not something that I never really heard in detail is how did you get there? What was your journey from, growing up kind of into the world of sport, but then at a certain point becoming curious about dance? How did this unfold?
Wow. Well, in the beginning, as a child, as a teenager, I was obsessed with balls. A football, a basketball, ping pong, all sizes of balls. I was like a dog that when I see a ball, I have to be around it and catch it. This was my energy. It had this competitive taste to it, and the goal oriented, you got to score. As a soccer player, as a basketball player, as a handball player, I was also for a short period of time professional handball goalkeeper, because I had really good instincts, so they put me a goalkeeper in handball, which is kind of a suicide thing to do. So I was definitely engaged very strongly in physicality. And the physicality I knew, especially as a boy, was sports. Yet, in weddings, And in parties, when the music is on, this bubble inside the body to dance that is like, it doesn't have any target, any goal. It's just like, wow, this music is taking over me. Usually it could be heavy metal, rock, blues music, and later on also jazz very much influenced the cells in my body to move to dance. And I felt so free. So there was something like that started to imprint in my cells that, wow, there is something so liberating in dancing. And I could do it for hours. And I could be even in high school, the first one, the party starts, everyone on the side with their like glasses and like starting to maybe move a little bit. And like somebody needs to do the first step to start move. I remember it in Tzafit, in the high school I was studying. And I was like, how can you even stop yourself from moving, and this first embarrassment from starting to dance, to move. I remember it funny how I remember it clearly in my body that what, I will be the first one to start dance? Maybe yes. And in the beginning you feel like such a clown, like you're embarrassed, and then people join and like, wow, this is great. Dancing is great. But I was shy. I was embarrassed as a child to, like, no other boys were studying dance, maybe one or two. And the look from outside, the observation or the perspective from outside is they have like a feminine quality to them. So when I was 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, I was like, I cannot be the only boy dancing. It was too embarrassing. I didn't have the courage. So all the dance moves I did on the football court with the ball, like trying to imitate Brazilian football. And, I say it, and I put a little like these bars, just realizing that now when I focus in my dance teaching about trajectory and the direction of the movement, how it is important for the action that you are doing, especially dancing with a partner, but also for the game of balance and off balance, the trajectory of the movement. Now I realize how I was fascinated about it in football. Not necessarily is the person that is kicking the ball to the goal, to the goalkeeper, but the one that is passing the last pass to the person that will kick it to the goal. So the accuracy of how is the dynamic and the energy of me kicking the ball, and the accuracy of the ball arriving not to the leg of the other player, but a bit in front or in the direction that he can kick, this accuracy is still something that is present in me as a dancer. It's very interesting. I now in the conversation, because of going back, and tracking it down, I realized the connection, which I relate to it as the trajectory of the movement. So anyway, I was into sports very strongly, and at some point there was a aerobic class, and I wanted to try everything, I even if it's just one class. I don't know if you call aerobic movement in front of mirrors dance or not, but there was music. So I went and I danced, and for some reason, I don't know why, I had to take the shortest pants ever. So I probably looked very feminine. And it was a period of time when I was 15, 16, I also had like a hair almost to the shoulders. And something in my appearance was feminine. in my look. And the other kids were like, after going to this class, were like really putting me down, like how you say, all these names, these nicknames, like
bullying you a bit.
Yeah, and yeah, it was also a moment of realization.
Labeling you.
Exactly, like more like how you say, a faggot, or all these kind of words. And eventually, in the beginning, it can hurt, but eventually I started asking myself questions connected to femininity and masculinity. How does it appear in dance? How do I look in the mirror to myself while dancing? The self-image, which is eventually, we grow up having maybe the longest relationship ever with our self-image. and it evolves and changes throughout life very much. And something actually about it made me find stronger my center and find the way to bring my masculinity and me, myself, as I am, into the dance world without labeling this is only for women and this is only for men. But it was a long it was a journey, especially as a teenager. At some point, just before the army, one friend of mine, female friend, she saw me dancing in a pub or something and said, "Look, you gotta come with me. There's a contact class of Aryeh Burstein in the kibbutz seminar kibbutzim college. You gotta try this." And she invited me, and I said, "Wow, why not? I'm curious." And I came and I fell in love with the contact language. I was, I think, 18 or 19. And I think this was maybe the first taste of like dancing in a studio and dancing in the studio with a partner alone, exploring movements. And it was like a revolution. You reveal something. Revelation, yes. And a big revelation for me. And I fell in love with it. And then I joined the army.
Oh my God.
Exactly the opposite. So, and I served 3 years in the army, but every chance I had, I would go with my soldier outfit and the rifle that I was carrying to the studio. And then sometimes arriving the first person, and just this action of taking the soldier outfit off and putting the gun to the side and just putting the training to dance was also a meaningful action for me, of how this life can, these worlds can coexist in some way. I would just mention that in the army I was a medic. I realized I don't want to kill anyone. I don't want to fight anyone. What can I do best in the army, to serve in the army, was maybe to help others. So I went to a medic course and I became a medic. And I actually had a very meaningful time in the army. And after I finished, I think quite fast, I asked myself, okay, now where can I now dive deeper into the exploration of physicality, into the contact, and then Sandra Amsalem called me. You remember the name? You know the name?
No, actually, no.
One of the first that were like the leaders of contact. She had her own direction she took with the contact improvisation here in Israel, leading it here in Israel from the beginning of the millennium. And she was also very passionate about circus and acrobatics, and she was a dancer herself, so she took contact into improvisation and was exploring the connection between that and the circus arts, also theater, acrobalance. Yeah.
She had this school,
Sanciel,
yeah.
So I studied there for 2 years. Found myself doing some circus stuff. She was a very meaningful contact teacher for me. Also, Aryeh Burstein, by the way, he is very inspiring with his words and his description, how he unfolds the physical material with his words. Sandra Amsalem was a big inspiration to see her moving and dancing contact. Not only as the one that is being lifted and flying around, but also she's very small. As the person, as the base, as the person lifting, and like really this versatile personality, in terms of the physicality, to change from being very grounded and strong as the person that is supporting as the base, but also as the flyer, and the ability to change between both. So I studied there. I think I really dive deeper into the contact very strongly. And yet I realized that circus is not really my thing. I enjoy watching circus, but it wasn't a big desire for me to climb on a rope, to do numbers on the rope or on trapeze or on tisu. I wanted to learn dance on the ground. I started joining some groups. I started performing a bit with the school ensemble, but also with other groups. And yet I felt that something is missing in terms of my physical skills, in terms of what we may call technique. And when I perform, when I dance, I realize that I'm going into the dramatic, theatrical aspect of the performance many times because of the lack of feeling like not having enough physical tools within me. And although I felt like strong as a performer and using the theatricality as well, I felt, well, I'm hiding something. Something is missing. And I was so passionate about dance. I said, Yochai, now come on, no excuses. I was, I think, 25, and I just stopped everything back then, and I went to the north and I joined the dance training workshop in Kibbutz Gaton, which has also a link. It's next by to the Kibbutz Contemporary Dance Company, is working there. And I started intensely hardcore, like training, sometimes doing also afternoon classes of ballet. So sometimes I could take maybe even 3 ballet classes a day in the beginning. So I said, yeah, just dive into the technique, and it was very challenging. to study ballet, classical dance in a later age can be a very frustrating experience, and looking at yourself in the mirror while you do adagio or a petit allegro, if you manage to watch yourself in the mirror and have the coordination to watch yourself and do the fast steps at the same time. So wow, you're on it. But in the beginning, the feeling is that the self-image is broken, is not a pleasant sight. If I came to study classical dance and I felt like really secure and confident about myself and my skills as a mover, as a performer, up to some level, of course, up to some level. When I started studying classical dance, ballet, I was like, the image was shattered. I felt like a cripple. I felt I could only see the lack of this, the lack of that, the lack of flexibility, the lack of point, the lack of arch, the lack of...
I can really identify with it. It's like it's the one thing that I really didn't want to deal with my own education, and I really suppressed it. It's so challenging to face it.
And then, there's you finish the day, you feel like really sore in the body, and also mentally or emotionally, it's like, wow, it wasn't easy. But for some reason, the next morning, every morning, doesn't matter how I felt, there wasn't a doubt in me that I'm getting up for the classes. It was like an inner voice that was stronger than how I perceive myself, how I see myself, that like, yeah, this is like super challenging, but you're not stopping, man. And I kept on going, and I appreciate it so much. I've learned so much from classical dance. I feel it's I haven't taken a ballet class for years, but it's in my cells very much. Very much. It's there. And the coordination, the articulation with the levels of muscle tone, to have this high muscle tone and to learn to control it, suspension of movement, the work of suspension. You don't see it in a baby. This is super interesting for me now as a dancer, as a teacher, that I watch my little girl, as a little baby, when she moves, she doesn't suspend her movement. There is no suspension. She can fall and have arrhythmical movement and reflexes, and it's connected to what she wants, some kind of goal, some kind of action. Or even if she dances freely, she would not go down to the floor suspending her movement in order to land down softly to the floor. She would just bump down or fall down to the floor and tuck, and there is something so interesting and so, in a way, unnatural to study ballet in that aspect, that I'm learning to control so profoundly my muscle tone and to suspend the movement to a very slow pace sometime. And I think it gave me a lot of knowledge, physical knowledge, that now in the last 10 years, 15 years, I'm using it. It's like I said, it's in my body, in my cells. As a contemporary dancer, as a contact dancer, mover, as a teacher, so I really appreciate or like I'm happy that I managed to not let this hurdle, this wall, when the self-image is broken, watching myself doing classical dance and like, wow, I feel like a cripple. I'm not sure this is for me. The body doesn't feel good at all. The sensations are really unpleasant. And the next days and the next weeks, it doesn't feel better, sometimes even worse. But there is a point that something changes. And I think after 2 years of studying ballet, I went afterwards and I kept on studying in the Maslul training program that was in Bikurei team in Tel Aviv, ran by Nomi Perlov at that time. Now she's running the Suzanne Dalal Center. So after 2 years of really focusing on studying classical dance, ballet, I felt in a class, now I'm dancing ballet. Now I'm not just doing movements like the teacher is doing or like the other dancers. I'm not just copying movement, I'm actually dancing. And it took a long time, but reaching this feeling that I dance a new language, really like breaking my teeth on learning Spanish or a new language. There is this satisfaction that, oh, my body now has another language imprinted in my cells, in my tissues, in my nerve system. And it's super rewarding and satisfying. I'm really grateful for that, for the persistent. So that was my, I don't know, the early times and also my journey as a student for dance.
Can I jump in?
Do so.
Yeah, like first, thank you. It's like it's really nice to hear you and to take the space to actually dive into those stories. I think they're so meaningful, and like the thing that kind of captured my attention a lot is like what you said about this coincidence of starting to dance and bam, and then suddenly going to the army. This kind of sharp, let's say, kind of reality confrontation. You're still in Israel. It's like you have your country calls you and you have to kind of deal with that. And I experienced something similar, but with a different elements. I kind of discovered traveling before the army. I flew to Thailand when I was 18, and I started to realize, wow, there's a whole world out there that I can experience. And then, I had to go to the army. And I had this kind of inner calling of like, why am I here? There is so many places I can be actually. And I had this kind of internal conflict. And then when you describe this scene of like kind of taking the uniform and putting the rifle and changing your like, you know, to a dance pants and going into the dance, this is some transition that I can really identify on a kind of from the bird's eye perspective, because I wasn't engaged in any professional dance or like dancing in the studio while I was in the army, but it was somehow something that accompanied me when I finished the army. And part of taking out the uniform was also eventually kind of to start wearing the dance outfit and to go through this transition. And I think that it's massive, because it's like, it's a huge look on the identity, and also like, you know, we both grew up in Israel, which is still nowadays a land of conflict, and the dancer body and the soldier body, they have different sensitivities. But yet, within this, you went and studied in a very, very challenging environment. And in the school that you study in, Nomi Perlov in Tel Aviv, I also wanted to follow your steps, and I went to do an audition there. And I didn't get accepted. And I was kicked in the first round, and it was a really strong hit to my ego because I was like kind of following your story, and I said like, cool, yeah, I'm confident, I have good present, they will for sure take me. And then they kicked me in the first round, and I was like, wow, what's gonna happen now? And then I got accepted to a school in Europe, and that's kind of maybe why I'm here now in Vienna and not in Israel. But I then managed to come back and visit this school, and after I finished my education, I came back to Israel and I was teaching a workshop in the school where you were studying. And I was also participating in some kind of performance project, and I've seen the attitude of me, the director, and I was thinking like, wow, she's like so sharp and clear and tough with the student that it's almost like like a military training.
Yeah, very much, very much.
And that's a very interesting connection, like this. That on one hand, like, the purpose is completely opposite, like, from self-expression and beauty into like, like self-preservation and war and conquest. But on the body level, like, we are treating the body sometimes so similar. Like also in the army, you would drill movements repetitively in order to get them into your body. I still remember this movement that you would stand and then the officer will shout "Pazatsta," and you would have to drop into the ground, like, and just protect yourself. And it's like a movement. You would tell me to me now, I can do it in an instinct, I think. So how do you see this? Like, where is the space in between of this kind of, let's say, dense militarization that enables you to still feel there free? Or like, I don't know if you can resonate with these ideas, but what do you think about it?
Wow, that's a super interesting topic you brought. Really inspiring to hear this direction of thought. How can I dance in the army? It's like we are just moving from one life frame to the other. The scenery is changing. The kind of actions we are needing to do is different, and the composition is different. But this quality or this memory to dance is to is a way of communication. It's a state of mind. I felt in the army, where I was, in many aspects, I was dancing. The kind of field, the kind of direction I took as a medic, and later on in charge of a clinic in the paratroops unit, and needing also to be in charge of a group of other soldiers. The dialogue, whether it is verbally or whether it is, through my actions, there is some kind of dance into it. And so it's some kind of a spirit that I feel has the same kind of a imprint in the soul while I'm in the army and while I'm dancing as a student for Nomi Perlov. So I felt for myself that Nomi Perlov is giving although from a perspective from outside, or from a look from outside, it of course it could seem, and I can laugh about it. It was an army of dance. It was like being in the army in many ways, but in other words, it's a very tight structure. The structure is very, very tight. And my question as a dancer, as a human being that enjoy dancing, how can I find freedom and movement in a very, very, very tight structure? And so I took it as a challenge. I wasn't like, this is not for me, and I don't like the attitude, and not in the army, and not dancing, and in the Maslul training program, where I also encountered a lot of, challenges and difficulties in relation to my progress, and to myself, and to how I perceive myself as a dancer. You can't help comparing yourself to others when you see others and they dance so beautifully, and where you are in relation to that. Also other men, of course. But it was so challenging, tight structure of counts, of different language of movements, like Barak Marshall or Preljocage, which I remember from the Maslul training program, or Nacho Duato, and other kinds, Idan Sharabi, I remember as well, Yossi Berg, Voded Graf. Not only tight structure, like every structure is very, very specific, I also need to be very capable to change, like in the next hour and a half, to something completely else sometimes, to another very tight structure, and to really find how I can find my freedom and my way in it. And the same state of mind, the same question, or the same being I had as a soldier in the army, not judging the army while being there. We don't need an army and all the politics and the things around it, and like I just want to rebel and I don't want to be here. I just, this is in some ways the reality of living in Israel. And of course, we could open it up. I don't think it's relevant for now. Yes or no, an army for Israel, especially in that ages. But that was my reality, and I decided not to fight it, but to find a way to find my freedom in it and my voice in it, and what I can do to not only focus on my self-growth, but how I can help others as well. And therefore, I became a medic. So I have a very inspiring memory from that. And again, like I said, it's the same state of mind, studying a very tight structure like a classical dance, or all kind of movement languages of different choreographers, and under the rehearsal management of Nomi Perlov, that everything, it needs to be very tight. And also, if you don't do it as accurate, or in the color of how the choreographer would like, you might not perform it. So also the sense of competition was there, or the wish to, this ambition or the strive to, I really want to perform it. If I didn't get it, if I would not perform it, or if I wouldn't be the first cast or second cast, it's not obvious. It's also something, that wasn't easy to digest. But it's what it was. And I chose to be there. So I wasn't a victim of anything. I just here I am. That's the reality. And I was just, how can I take the best out of it? And I feel the most inspiring thing, maybe one of the most inspiring things I took, was to find freedom in a very, very tight structure. Maybe that's what comes to me.
Oh, it's one thought that comes in mind when I hear you is that, if I think about the word freedom, I can look at it in two different trajectories. So I'm also going to use a bit your vocabulary. So I can experience freedom for something, but I can also look at freedom as freedom from something. And that's, I think, something that I mean, I've experienced the connection to freedom in these two opposing ways. So when I think about dancing, so then I immediately think, dance gives me the freedom to express myself. So it's freedom for something. But when I think about being a soldier, I had freedom from earthly commitments. I didn't need to take care of myself in the army. The army did it for me. So I didn't have to worry about so much things that normally would occupy my time, like what I'm gonna eat, when, where I'm gonna be, how much I'm gonna sleep. Like all these things have been decided for me. So I had complete freedom from that, and I didn't need to worry about those things. And within it, there is a certain freedom. And I guess that maybe what you said, like, which is in the heart of the differences, I think it's like, like that you chose to go to the dance school, like it's like, I take the choice and now I go and I put myself in this extreme environment and it's my choice. I'm not a victim of the situation. And to some extent, I didn't choose to go to the army, but I did choose, at least. And I guess that, like, we can talk about it hypothetically and philosophically, to what extent do we have choice in life. But if we talk about like external circumstances, so I think some circumstances, I guess it's very hard to choose to change them. I don't know. The first thing that comes in mind is like, if, the Syrian civil war, if we were born there, it would be very hard to just decide, I don't want to deal with it, I'm changing my reality. It's like, it's probably a difficult situation to choose. But nevertheless, I think that the way we relate to the situation, that there is tremendous amount of freedom.
Tremendous.
In how we address those challenges and I don't know. For me, it's go ahead.
No, I mean, freedom of choice is really a big topic. One of the pieces I danced in The Big Game by Sharona Florsheim. I have a moment there speaking about it, and Adi Elzam, we were dancing together in the piece. I'm having like a speech about בחירה חופשית, freedom of choice, free will. And I'm like full onto it, free will. And Adi is saying, stop, play. He decides randomly, I don't know where it is, to cut me. And I'm stopping, and then he says play, and I continue talking, like so engaged in it. It was for me a very meaningful experience as a performer, this moment. I remember like almost arguing with Sharona that I don't manage to grab the essence of this solo, this moment, this monologue. It was like a monologue, half physical, half verbal, talking to the audience. And I think that was one of the beauties of this moment, that I was like, am I really free? It was like so like a satire, like so ironic in that moment, that this kind of stopping and play, and I'm like full on into it and speaking about free will. And when as we grow up, this interest or a focus on free will, freedom of choice is very present. Am I really choosing what I do? I think, just to support movement and physicality, if I want to be simple in that aspect. So in life, there are so many moments to fall into the trap of I'm a victim. They did this to me. He did that to me. It's because of it's because of them. Oh, I'm miserable, And it's so easy to get trapped in it as a partner, as a father, in the profession. And I needed to do a lot of self-work also to realize to snap and to step out of it in the places where I felt it. And one of the understandings or the clarities were, I'm choosing, I'm here. This is the reality. This is the tight structure that I'm working with. What is the dance inside? What is the freedom? And unless I can have another choice, oh, this is not for me. You know, it's like I have no doubt that I will not touch cocaine. It's like, it's not that I'm looking for the, I don't know what, inside of it. It's like a clear border. This is not for me. I'm fine with that, you know. But the choice to have a family, also as a dancer, as an artist, is not an obvious choice. There was a very long inner process to connect to the choice making that I made. I'm making here a choice, and this choice becomes my reality every day. What is the dance here? How can I dance it? And it's theoretically, even especially now or like after quite a while, you know, I can speak about it. It's very challenging to practice on a daily basis. And this is actually connects me to you very much. I feel also emotionally, because hearing also other podcasts and knowing you and realizing you're also a father for two, right? Father for two.
Yeah.
And an artist, a movement artist yourself, a dancer, performer, and how to manage to sync between these two realities of an artist that wants to fulfill oneself and to evolve as a performer, as a mover, as a dancer, and explore more and more. But we have a family, and we need to give a shelter and provide for this family. And it's an incredible duet eventually. It's an incredible performance. And I'm saying that after a lot of tears.
You know, like you said one word that kind of again pulled my attention. You said like I'm not gonna be the victim. I'm not the victim. I don't want to cultivate the state of victimhood and to start blaming. And while you were saying it, because like when the way you described it, I could immediately kind of feel the kind of emotion that this state of mind would provoke inside of me. And it made me to think about like what is the utility of it? Because, you know, like if we look at very extreme situation, there are situations of that you can really say like, well, they were the victims of this situation, you know, like, I don't know, the first thing that comes in mind, very clear, very obvious, you know, we are both, we grew up in Israel, we have this Jewish heritage, you go back to the history of the Second World War, you know, like there was a clear perpetrators and victims there. But I think that like the way I'm like now when you were saying it, it kind of was clear for me like that maybe it's good to recognize what kind of emotions are being generated, and maybe I would differentiate between resentment and anger, because I feel like when I start to feel resentment inside of me, then I'm connecting to this victimhood that is very negative, that is like, I didn't get the job because he got the job, and like now I'm the victim, and like life is not fair to me, and then I'm full of resentment. But sometimes it's also good to recognize, you know, these potential injustices. But then I feel that I would be more connected to anger if I see, you know, I don't know, if I go on the street and I see some very, you know, strong boy kicking the ass of a very young boy, then, you know, I'm not going to be resentment. I'm going to be angry. Hey, what is going on here? This is not okay. This is not like, now you're behaving in a way that is not okay to this person, and you're attacking this victim. Because I think that victimhood is not something that is always like that, that should always be pointed internally when we are interacting with the world. Like, correct me, I don't know, maybe you think differently, but I see a situation where I can recognize that somebody is suffering and there is a certain external cause and I want to support it. But nevertheless, I understand that as a strategy for self-liberation, it's not good to pump your victim mentality. But so you understand what I'm pointing? Like, there is an external use of it and there's an internal relation with it. And maybe they're both, like, it's good to differentiate between them.
Yeah. It's endless sometimes, the ability to break down mentally what is good and what is bad, and if it's right or not, something. Why am I dancing? Why am I moving? I'm moving because movement is life. So while the feeling that there is movement is a feeling I'm alive. Therefore, the main question I ask myself is, by reacting in a certain way, do I sense movement or do I sense stuckness, lack of movement? Now, very inspiringly, I'm learning very humbly how to transform more clearly anger when it comes up into movement, and not into am I right or wrong, which is in my body a sensation of stuckness. Something is stuck. I'm now working with my head. My physicality is shut down. And so the main question is, do I sense movement in my action, in my choice making? So it's not about deleting what we can say as negative emotions or sensations, or like, resentment, frustration, anger, jealousy. Is what is the movement aspect of it? And if I connect to movement within the emotion of anger, first of all, I'm living, I'm alive, and I allow movement. And now I allow anger to transform into something else, maybe even in a surprising way. And I can also inspire, and I feel this is for me almost like a shlichut, like, how do you say, to be a missionary of something, like a shlichut בעברית.
The word doesn't come up immediately for me as well.
But even as a performer,
life quest
is to inspire others to find movement in each and every situation that there is a sensation of stuckness. And the moments of stuckness, they arrive every day, sometimes countless moments a day, that you can realize if you look inside for a moment. Doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong, something is stuck. There is no movement. I can clearly feel, maybe in certain parts in my body, and does it tribute my growth? So I use this kind of questions in a laboratory, this circle of thoughts, if to say it like this, to help me make choices, even if I see an injustice happening, like you were saying, a bigger boy hitting a younger, smaller child. What they also experience in themselves, or maybe the bigger boy, some kind of stuckness that drives him to act the way he does. He doesn't now compassionately watching him, if I'm, in a good state, managed to see that, it doesn't have the knowledge yet how to channel or transform his anger into movement, into life, into living. So he hit a little boy because the movement wants to be expressed. It cannot be suppressed. If it's suppressed, after a while, it grows inside the body and it wants to be expressed somehow. It can be, afterwards, it can turn into cancer, into colon diseases, into asthma, into skin diseases, into moments of rage that you need to shout or you need to hit someone. The learning process, how to find movement, creative, inspiring movement within negative emotions or from negative emotions or sensations is, wow, this is amazing. And I would like to give an example from the last performance, actually, that I had, what was it, 3 weeks ago. I'm lucky and fortunate to perform again in front of live audience. It's a blessing. And I was performing with the latest, one of the latest pieces that I'm dancing in with the choreographer Tamar Borel. The language movement there is from the world of Buto dance, the Japanese language of movement Buto. There is something a lot very, very delicate inside and this exploration or express the expressiveness of this kind of movement on stage, and finding the delicacy within the movement is one of the key points in order to unfold and reveal the language of the Buto. So one can understand it by, I will decrease the aggressiveness. I will shut down negative emotions. So I will connect to softness, sensitivity, delicacy. I was so fortunate to work with her and realize how to bring my, like, what is happening inside of me, not identify with it, but to learn how to transform it into movement, into something that we can say performative and communicative. And in the last performance we did, well, I came on that day, I was frustrated and angry. Doesn't matter from what. And I needed to perform this performance. It's an hour performance, it's a journey with 3 musicians on stage playing live music, and we're 3 dancers, me, another female dancer, and Tamar Borel. And I was like, wow, I'm so far from the delicacy and the small things. I'm like, wow, I feel this anger that it makes everything like big volume. And I could remember myself in other moments like shutting down the anger or putting it, now connect to something else, just put it aside. And at a certain point, because I have a very close relationship with Tamar, a very open relationship, I asked her, look, Tamar, wow, I'm so angry today. What can I do? I wanna, how to find to direct it into the performance. I don't remember her exact words, but I do remember that just by sharing with her what I feel and not suppressing it, and understanding with her together that is not something bad that I need to put aside, but Yochai, use this as an opportunity now to channel it into the unknown, unfamiliar, awkward world of Buto, of this choreography of the journey that we are entering. It was incredible. But then it was like, wow, to find a way how something that is stuck and you just want to shout it out, hit it out, and you find yourself suppressing it. And then you feel the lack of movement and your body is like, struggling or is hard. And inside of that, to discover the way how to channel it into movement in the performance itself was a healing process. And I think was super inspiring. And I remember also from the comments from audience and from, and especially from my feeling after, I felt so good. I felt liberated. I felt wiser. I felt, wow, that's one of the reasons I go up on stage to perform. To practice this skill, these abilities, not just to be the best soldier, executor, mover, dancer, that sometimes we study, but to bring the inner personality, the emotions, the sensations, and to sync it together. And this dance of all these feelings, sensations, technique, experience as a mover, and all of it together, finding this communication between all the colors and the sides, there is a manifestation of freedom.
Oh, thank you for sharing this story. It really touched me. And there is something that I really want to take from this conversation to my life is not to really use the body intelligence in order to sense if the energy is flowing or not, rather than going into, because I'm hyper intellectual, I immediately go to the brain and I start to dissect things with words and understanding concept and putting them in different boxes, and that's how I kind of operate. But it's where it doesn't work at all in my life is when I have to confront my kids in challenging situations. Then all the verbalization, it's not working anymore. Like my son, he pushes me in a lot of sensitive points around the topic of anger management and general like physical aggression. And yeah, I would really want to take those words into action in my life. Thank you for pointing it out like this.
I have to mention that I came home and I felt more available for my family. How beautiful can it be that I also were really diving deep into the art and into the dance and the performance, but also coming home, I was like, hey, I'm available to be here. So therefore I felt, okay, something good happened,
Yes, this is maybe the most inspiring thing about it, no? Like, because many times I feel that when I really dive into my universe, then it's kind of because I push the family aside, but not in order to come back and take the role. And in my own story, it made me to take the choice of like really stopping for a while. I stopped teaching in 2018. I took a break from teaching for like a year and a half, and I needed to really understand these new responsibilities that I've invited into my life. And now I'm slowly getting back into that, but from a very different angle. And it's something I will definitely try to take from this conversation.
Look, the word that comes to me is coordination. Learning to be a dancer, a performer, or even to live and grow up is practicing coordination. I don't know if one can call it multitasking, but this ability that we have, we're sometimes resisting it, that we can do that and that and that and that, and we will be fine. And maybe they will even contribute to one another in ways that sometimes that we cannot see. So sometimes this tendency to go and do something, to go and work and disconnect from my family, or to be with my family and disconnect from my art and my dance in order to manage this or that, there is some kind of survival mode into it. In order to manage, to be here, wow, I need to disconnect from that, so I need to be here. And I'm trying something that I might, you can call it an unhabitual way. To practice something unhabitual is not to delete an experience from another life frame, from another composition, from another reality that I have when I'm just with myself and when I'm with the family. But to find this integration, it's I'm not saying it like I'm juggling it like somebody juggle 5 balls, so easily. I'm saying it because, I'm sharing this because it's something that I'm really super duper practicing now in my life, full on. I took it as I said, Yochai, it's not in the future. It's now. You have to find a way to integrate between your life as a dance artist that is so passionate about my own individual progress in life and evolution in art and in dance and in performance. You got to find to integrate it with the family, living also in the village, in some way far from the light, the easy approach to art and dance, and having a young family also, a baby on the way, and the soul that is almost 3, and Kalash is 12, and to find this integration. And I'm like, if you won't do it, and just say you're a victim of a reality, or I don't know what, it's it's up to you. So, and I'm not doing it alone, First of all, I'm really having a lot of conversation with my partner, with Olivia, that of course she has a similar challenge in a way, because she's also a dancer and she's also very much into choreography and definitely into making art, and how to combine it with being a family or to now be pregnant. So we are sharing a lot, and I also humbly say that I use help. I can meet a therapist to talk about it, to brainstorm what is needed to break through this Afred Umshol, these two extremes, raising a family, providing for a family, and being a dance artist, a performer. How can it coexist? And I'm sharing it. I'm excited in my body. I'm also like, I'm learning it as I speak, as I share it. I'm remembering it also, reminding it to myself as well.
Hey man, it's so nice to see you. Yeah, and I would love to just appear like that next to you and share some dances together. Man, I really miss it so much. And yeah, it's like when I hear you, I'm also more positive about the the challenges that I need to face. My wife has a very strong wish to go back to Israel. And I have a tremendous, I have a lot of fears. How can I integrate who am I now into going back to the place I was born? But, I look at this conversation that we had and how like the concept that you brought into it, the anchors and the trust and the integration. Yeah, I can really hope I can follow your footstep in that regard of inviting trust to face the unknown and to face the inevitable changes that we have to go through. Yochai, it's funny because I literally didn't ask you one thing from the list of questions that I made for us, and yet I come out extremely satisfied with the time that we spent together. And I do want to give you some space. I don't know if it's something that is important for you or not, but to share a little bit with those who are listening, like where they can catch you if they're interested in, tasting a bit more of what you're offering. I don't know if you're teaching now or if you have some plans to be again in Europe and elsewhere, or if you're offering some online courses or something that people can, have another bite from what you are talking about.
Thank you for the space for that. Let me think. You want to come plant some trees with me in the garden? Me and Olivia are really, really excited to plant some fruit trees and really exploring what are the best fruit trees for this kind of a region or part in Israel. Professionally speaking, I'm performing also next month. Probably every 2 months we will see with Tamar Borel. The piece is called Nur, what I was sharing before, in Hateiva in Jaffa in Israel. Also, I haven't mentioned, but I'm dancing in a very beautiful duet that Olivia has created. I was a co-created and dancer in the piece. It's called I Carry You Hold. That was created for Curtain Up Festival in 2019. There was the premiere. And we were supposed to tour also to Holland, to Portugal, to Hungary. Everything was cancelled due to the corona or postponed. Not to mention that now she's pregnant, so everything is postponed second time. So now there isn't a specific date for performances, although there will be most likely from April, May, June 2022. So this is the main 2 projects that I'm in for now. As a teacher, again, the ability to travel abroad is now like a big question mark. So I don't know now. Now there isn't something in the schedule for teaching in the abroad, but in Israel, occasionally I give workshops of contact, and that they are open. The next workshop is actually in Hakvutza, a weekend for advanced contact dancers, whatever it means. I will be teaching there. Besides that, I'm teaching in dance training programs. Like, it's not something that somebody can just join or closed frames like companies here in Israel. But so
maybe I will link to your like social media profile that people who are curious to connect to you are welcome to do that.
If there is a workshop or something, so I publish just on my page on Facebook. For now, like I said, my main focus is this now anchor in Bet Nir and settling down and maybe finding the way to organize a space for us to dance.
Yeah, I can really wish that, like if the situation here will change, I would love to invite you here to Vienna, maybe to do some collaboration here.
Amazing. We'll be happy to.
We'll be very happy to cross paths. And yeah, I want to thank you for the time that you came here and everything you shared. And it's really touched me, this conversation, and I'm super happy to have the opportunity to share this time with you, man.
Thank you very much, Matan. I was inspired and excited, and I had no idea what will come out. I'm also very thankful. Toda.
Toda. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
If you want to see more precious and insightful moments, make sure to check our short clips playlist. To see longer interviews, check out the full episode playlist just below it. And to be notified for all future videos, click the subscribe button and don't forget to hit the notification bell. See you on the next episode.